Hello fellow gardeners, and welcome back to the Humus Heritage. I'm thrilled you're here because today we're tackling one of the most frustrating challenges many of you face in your gardens. Is your garden struggling with stubborn alkaline soil, leaving your acid-loving plants stunted and unhappy? You've tried everything but nothing seems to work. What if I told you the secret to vibrant blueberries and hydrangeas isn't in a chemical aisle, but right in your workshop waste bin? That's right. Sawdust and wood chips. Those materials you might be throwing away or burning could be the game-changing solution your soil has been crying out for. Before we dive into the specifics of these two materials, let's talk about why soil pH matters so much. Many beloved garden plants, particularly blueberries, azaleas, rhododendrons, and hydrangeas, are what we call acid-loving species. They thrive in soil with a pH between 4.5 and 6. But most garden soils naturally sit somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5, which is neutral to slightly alkaline. When these plants are forced to grow in soil that's too alkaline, they simply cannot access the nutrients they need, even if those nutrients are present in abundance. You'll see yellowing leaves, stunted growth, and disappointing harvests or blooms. The traditional solution has been sulfur or aluminum sulfate, but these chemicals can be expensive, require careful application, and don't improve your soil structure the way organic amendments do. This is where sawdust and wood chips enter the picture as surprisingly effective, natural alternatives that do double duty by both adjusting pH and enriching your soil's organic content. Let's start with sawdust, the finer of our two contenders. Sawdust's magic lies in its incredibly small particle size, which creates an enormous surface area relative to its volume. This means microorganisms can get to work on it immediately, breaking down the cellulose and lignin at a rapid pace. As these microbes feast on the sawdust, they multiply exponentially, and here's where the chemistry gets interesting. They need nitrogen to fuel their population explosion, so they pull it from the surrounding soil. This process creates what's called nitrogen immobilization, which I'll address in a moment. But simultaneously, as the sawdust decomposes, it releases organic acids into the soil, which directly lower the pH. The decomposition of cellulose produces compounds like acetic acid and other weak organic acids that create that acidic environment your blueberries and rhododendrons crave. The speed at which sawdust works is both its greatest strength and its primary challenge. In just a few weeks to a few months, you can see measurable drops in soil pH, making sawdust ideal when you need results relatively quickly. However, that rapid decomposition means the effect is temporary, typically lasting just one growing season before you need to reapply. The nitrogen depletion issue is real and cannot be ignored. When you apply sawdust, especially if you till it directly into the soil, those hungry microbes will rob your plants of available nitrogen, causing yellowing leaves and poor growth. The solution is surprisingly simple. Always add a nitrogen source alongside your sawdust. Composted manure works beautifully, as does blood meal, feather meal, or even a balanced organic fertilizer. A good rule of thumb is to add about 1 cup of a high nitrogen fertilizer for every 5 gallons of sawdust you apply. When selecting sawdust, source matters tremendously. You want untreated wood from coniferous trees like pine, fir, or spruce, which are naturally more acidic than hardwoods. Pine sawdust is my personal favorite because it's both acidic and, honestly, readily available at most lumberyards and sawmills, often for free or just the cost of hauling it away. Never, and I cannot stress this enough, never use sawdust from treated lumber, painted wood, or composite materials like MDF or particle board. These contain toxic chemicals including arsenic, chromium, and formaldehyde that will contaminate your soil and potentially harm both you and your plants. Also avoid black walnut sawdust, which contains juglone, a natural herbicide that's toxic to many garden plants. Now let's shift our attention to wood chips, which operate on an entirely different timeline and philosophy. Wood chips are coarser, chunkier pieces of wood, typically ranging from a 1/4 inch to several inches in size. This larger particle size means far less surface area for microbes to work on, which translates to a much slower decomposition rate, often taking 2 to 5 years or even longer to fully break down. This slower process is actually wood chips' greatest asset for long-term soil building, though it makes them less effective as a direct pH modifier. The reality that might surprise you is this: wood chips are not actually an effective soil acidifier in most practical applications. While fresh wood chips can create a slightly acidic layer on the soil surface as they begin to decompose, this effect is minimal and localized. The pH change occurs primarily in the top inch or two of soil and rarely persists throughout the root zone where it would make a real difference to your plants. However, this doesn't mean wood chips lack value, quite the opposite. Wood chips excel as a long-term soil conditioner and mulch that builds soil health in ways that go far beyond simple pH adjustment. When applied as a 3 to 4 inch layer of mulch around your acid-loving plants, wood chips create a protective barrier that suppresses weeds, conserves moisture, moderates soil temperature, and gradually enriches the soil as they break down. Over time, this slow decomposition feeds an entire ecosystem of beneficial fungi and bacteria. The fungal networks that develop in wood chip mulch are particularly valuable, as they form symbiotic relationships with plant roots, helping them access water and nutrients more efficiently. Just like with sawdust, wood chips can cause temporary nitrogen immobilization if you mix them directly into the soil, though the effect is less dramatic because decomposition happens more slowly. The key is to use wood chips primarily as a surface mulch, rather than tilling them in. Let them sit on top of the soil where they'll slowly break down at the interface between the mulch and the soil surface. Here's a strategy that combines the best of both worlds. Use sawdust mixed with compost or aged manure as your active soil amendment when initially creating an acidic planting bed, then top it with a layer of wood chip mulch for long-term weed suppression and moisture conservation. This layered approach gives you the immediate pH adjustment you need while building long-term soil health. Test your soil pH every 6 months using a reliable soil test kit or by sending samples to your local extension office. This monitoring lets you know when it's time to add more sawdust to maintain the acidity your plants need. Implementing this strategy successfully starts with knowing your baseline. Before applying any amendments, test your soil pH using either an inexpensive home testing kit or, for more accurate results, a professional soil test through your county extension service. Record this number and the date because you'll want to compare it to future tests to track your progress. For most acid-loving plants, you're aiming for a pH between 4.5 and 5.5. Though some plants like blueberries prefer the lower end of that range, while others are happy closer to 6.0. When you're ready to apply sawdust, start conservatively. For every 100 square feet of garden bed, mix 5 to 10 gallons of sawdust with 2 to 3 gallons of composted manure or 2 cups of blood meal. Spread this mixture over the soil surface in a layer about 1 to 1.5 inches thick, then lightly work it into the top 2 inches of soil with a cultivating fork. Water it in well. For existing plants, keep the sawdust mixture a few inches away from stems and trunks to prevent rot and pest issues. Retest your soil after 6 to 8 weeks to see how much the pH has dropped and adjust your future applications accordingly. With wood chips, simply apply a 3 to 4 inch layer as mulch around your plants, keeping it pulled back a few inches from stems. Watch your plants for signs of success or problems. Healthy new growth, deeper green leaves, and improved flowering or fruiting all indicate you're on the right track. But if you see yellowing leaves despite adequate nitrogen supplementation, you might be over-acidifying. In that case, it's time to let the soil pH rise naturally, or maybe add a bit of lime to bring it back up. Remember that pH adjustment is a process, not a one-time fix. Patience, combined with regular monitoring, will give you the best results. I hope this deep dive into sawdust and wood chips has given you the confidence to tackle your soil pH challenges naturally and effectively. These simple, often free materials can truly transform your garden when used with knowledge and intention. If you found this guide helpful, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our practical gardening solutions. Share this video with fellow gardeners who are struggling with alkaline soil. Together, we can build healthier, more productive gardens, using the wisdom of working with nature rather than against it. Drop a comment below telling me about your own experiences with sawdust or wood chips, and hey, let me know what topics you'd like me to cover next. Happy gardening, and I'll see you in the next video.